you guys doing? My name is Matt. I'm one of the pastors here on staff, and thrilled to be able to work through our Jesus on the Move series as our study through the book of Mark that we're doing. But before we even get into that, just happy Memorial Day to you. I hope that you guys enjoy the day off tomorrow for those who get it. I don't want to take away from the true meaning of the day, but I know a lot of people are just really thrilled to get a day off of work. In fact, as I was studying for this talk, I started doing some research on statistics, like I am wont to do, and I just typed this into Google just to see what would come back, and that is, what percentage of Americans hate their jobs? You guys want to take a guess? All right, I heard a 60, 70, and 80. Man, you guys those are some high numbers, right? Yeah, it's because you guys are correct. The number is 70%. 70% of Americans say that they hate their jobs. Is that not mind-blowing, right? 70%. Have you guys ever heard that old adage, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life? Americans have not figured that out, right? We're like, no, that's not true, because I can't monetize fast food and Netflix. I just can't find a way to make money off of that. So I'm just doing what I have to do. 70% is a gigantic number. When you think about it, that's 7 out of 10. I have this basic math right here. 7 out of 10 people are like, no, I hate my job. And what's funny is, as I was starting to process this, I started to think about, who doesn't hate their job? If it's 70%, who are the people not hating it? And owners and managers, I feel are always disillusioned that, when it comes to that 70%, that might be the DMV and cable customer service, departments. Those are the people who really hate their jobs. They're throwing off the numbers for the rest of us, right? Because every manager, every owner, every supervisor that I know, just seems to be convinced that their job, the job that they're offering their employees to do, is somehow that magical job that holds all fulfillment, hopes, and dreams inside of it, right? And that doesn't come across any clearer than when you sit down for the job interview. When you sit down for the job interview, how funny is it when you have some guy sitting across the desk and he's like, hey, what motivated you to apply for this position? Why do you want to work here at our tape factory? Why do you want to do this? And what are you going to say? Well, I just have this passion to keep boxes shut. I just want to see people be able to take things to FedEx and not worry about it just busting open when it gets over Denver. At what point are you thinking to yourself, man, this job holds all of the hopes and dreams I could ever have for my life? If we were truly honest, when that prospective employer asked that question, hey, what motivated you to come in today? You're probably thinking, I don't want to be homeless. I want to put food on my table and live inside. Those are the things that I really want to do. But I think what this is, though, is if you think about 70% of Americans hating their job, despite the fact that we are a very wealthy nation. So we can't say that money fixes this, right? Because we're living better than the rest of the world. You can't say that it's just the comforts of life that we're deprived of. That's why people hate their jobs. No, I believe that one of the reasons why that number is so high, why 70% is the statistic of people who don't like their jobs. It's not that, hey, I occasionally don't like going in. It's 70% of Americans hate. They hate their job. And I think this is indicative of a much bigger picture, and that is, most of us hate the drudgery of knowing I have to get up every day. I have to motivate myself to go into do a job I don't like just so I can finish it, and then go and do it the next day, and the next day, and the next day. I just feel like there's so much more to life than this. And I would say that you're probably right. There probably is something a little bit more to life than that. Because when you actually ask the question, what motivates people? What makes people, not you individually, just people in general, what makes our hearts beat fast? I think that if you go back to our fantasies, and what I mean by that is if you go back to our literature, the stories that we tell, the epics that have been passed down from generation to generation, you start to notice that there's a theme. that a lot of the movies, a lot of the books, a lot of the stories that we can recite right now are basically all the same story, just told a million different ways. Okay, so just for example, I just want us to think this out. I'm going to give you, we'll play a little game. So name your favorite movie about a New York cop who decides to come to Los Angeles to try and reconnect with his estranged wife over Christmas, ends up in the Nakatomi Tower until these terrorists come and start screwing things up. That's right, you guys are correct, it's Die Hard. Now, what is the actual story to Die Hard? Well, it's someone John McClane loves is in danger, his wife, Holly Gennaro, and he risks everything to save her. But we don't question the peril he puts himself in. Why? Because the reward would be fitting the sacrifice. If he were to die in the process of trying to save his wife, nobody's going to question whether or not his life was wasted in vain, right? Okay, let's play another one. Here, next round, round 2. Name your favorite movie about a young artist who gets a ticket to go on a boat, but falls in love with a young aristocratic lady, and then in the process ends up like going down with the ship. Titanic, you guys are correct. Man, you guys are really good at this game. All right, so what is the actual, what's the story for Titanic? Well, Rose is in danger. She's in danger of freezing to death. And Jack risks everything by giving her the piece of buoyant wood, which maybe 2 people would fit on. We don't know. But we don't question. We don't question the peril he puts himself in. Why? Because if he dies in the process, which, spoiler, he does. When he dies in the process, it's to save the one he loves. We don't question. Okay, last round. For all of us who are eternally kids at heart, what's your favorite movie about an ogre who leaves the swamp to try and save a woman from the unspeakable danger of marrying somebody who is shorter than her? Shrek, you guys are correct. Now, what's the actual story to Shrek? Well, Princess Fiona is in danger, and Shrek risks everything to save her. Now, we don't question the peril he puts himself in because the reward would be fitting the sacrifice. So that's what our stories are built on. That's what our movies, the epics that we share from generation to generation. It basically follows, the same story, but just told in a million different ways. But the thing is, I know that this is true for what we fantasize about, but I also know it's true with some of the things that people do in the real world that we honor and highly value. Now, I just recently went through this book. It's called Ghost Soldiers by Hampton Sides, and it tells the story of 121 Army Rangers who risked everything to save 532 prisoners of war during World War II. Now, let me just give you the setting for it. This is Memorial Day weekend, and so we need to honor those who have fallen for our freedoms. And so what happened is when Pearl Harbor was attacked, it wasn't just Hawaii that was under siege, but other American ports and places of strategic importance were also being attacked by the Japanese around the world, and one of which was Manila Bay. And so as the bombs start coming down, you have a few people who are kind of backed into a corner on the peninsula of Bataan, and you have roughly about 12 to 15,000 Filipino and American soldiers who are backed into a corner until they're eventually taken captive by the Japanese. And what happens is completely and totally atrocious, because as they start taking them on the walk, and it's in history known as the Bataan Death March, if somebody was a little slow, they were killed. If somebody broke down because they're hungry, they're starving, they're thirsty, if they just stopped, they were killed. If they got out of line in any way, they were killed. And experts say that as many as 2,600 to 11,000 Filipino and American soldiers were killed on their walk from Bataan to the prisoner of war camp. And so as word starts getting back to U.S. intelligence, this group of Army Rangers started having this conversation. Those are our friends. Those are our brothers. Those are our fellow soldiers. Those are the people that we love. And so despite the fact that really from a strategic point of view, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense just to go and free a bunch of prisoners of war, they risk everything to get them. And at the end of the day, we don't question their sacrifice. Why? Because the reward is fitting. If they die in the process of saving their fellow soldiers, we don't say, what a waste. We applaud that. And I believe that this general principle, that you were meant not just to do your job, but to impact other people and save other people from impending doom, is not a learned trait. It's not a story that we just like to tell. It's something that God has written inside of our hearts. And as you study the scriptures, and as we study the book of Mark today, you'll see there are several instances where God or Jesus intersects mankind. He stops them and says, your life is going this way. I want to take you on a new adventure. I want to take you on a new journey. I want your life to be worth so much more than just the day-to-day. I want to give you a new purpose and mission in life. And so with that, I want to go ahead and jump into Mark chapter 1. We're going to be in Mark 1, verse 16 through 20, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to read this a couple times. The first time we read it, I really just want to go into what is actually happening here. We're going to talk about the significance to the people and the characters in the story, and talk about why it's important that we even study it today. But then I also, the second time we go through this, I want to talk about the significance to you and me and our church as a whole. And so just bear with me as we go through this maybe a couple times. It's short though, just about 4 or 5 verses. So let's just go ahead and read this the first time through. It says in Mark 1, verse 16, one day as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon. Quick time out. If you've been around church for a while, you might see the name Peter show up every now and then. Well, Simon is another name for Peter, so, St. Peter, all that. That's the same guy. So he sees Simon and his brother Andrew throwing a net into the water. But why were they throwing? Okay, because they fish for a living. Thank you for clearing that up. Now, Jesus called out to them, come, follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people. And they left their nets at once and they followed him. Now, a little farther up the shore, Jesus saw Zebedee's sons, James and John, in a boat repairing their nets. He called them at once, and they also followed him, leaving their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men. Okay, so what did we just read here? Well, historically, let me just give you the significance of this exact moment in history. March 29th, 2016, several hundred people are in this room, and several million, if not billions of people are meeting around the globe today in churches. Why? Because of what happened at this moment. Okay, so this is a very, very significant point. Before this moment, these guys, they weren't following Jesus. They weren't part of his crew or his posse. They weren't one of his disciples. They were just fishermen hanging out in the boat, casting their nets, fixing the nets so that tomorrow they could go out and do it all again. And then all of a sudden, Jesus intersects their part, this very mundane part of their day, says something to them, and they drop everything to start following Jesus. And 2,000 years later, we're still here because of what happened right here. But it's more than just that. I want us to really kind of imagine what it would have been like for Simon and Andrew and James and John as they heard this invitation from Jesus to drop everything and follow him. One of the first things I want to point out is it says that Jesus actually singled them out. There was a personal invitation to come and follow him. The second thing that we know as we study through this is that these guys were actually pretty successful at what they did. I have a tendency, as I read through the New Testament and I see the guys were fishermen, to kind of think of that in our 21st century American terms of, he's a fisherman, so he's probably like a weekend warrior. He's between the 9 to 5, he's out at the Anaheim Lakes, casting the line in the water, hoping to get something back. We have that tendency to think these things as we read this because for us, fishing by and large is mostly a hobby in 21st century America. But for them, in this day and age, fishing was the main industry. It was the thing that if you were insignificant in Galilee, that's what you did. And for Simon and Andrew, we actually know through some things outside of this passage, like if you go back to Israel today and you see where they believe Peter's home is, Simon's home is, it's a really big footprint, which tells us Simon was probably really good at what he did. He was probably a great fisherman. A little bit further up the shore, when Jesus finds James and John, it says that Zebedee, their dad, he had hired men in the boat with him. In this day and age, this is before the modern corporation. To have a hired man in your boat, this meant that you were not just good at what you did, you were really good at what you did. You were so good, in fact, you made so much money you could hire other guys to fish for you. Like, these were not just, hey, I got my tackle box and my rod and reel. These were like legit fishermen. As we know from other places in history and scripture, this was probably something that was a generational business that was being passed on from generation to generation to generation. They probably had their entire future cemented. They probably never would have to worry about where the next meal would come from, how they were going to pay for their house, how they were going to educate their children. And why? Because they were pretty good at what they did. And so then all of a sudden, Jesus shows up on the scene. And let's not try and think that they know what happens at the end of the book. I mean, frankly, here's the information they have to go on at this point. This crazy guy out in the wilderness named John the Baptist said that Jesus was going to be the guy that we should put our attention onto at this point. Jesus has been teaching, people have been listening, but until this point, we're not seeing like these massive healings. We're not seeing like these, the feeding of 5,000 with just, a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. We're not seeing, Jesus raising people from the dead. At this point, when he invites Simon and Andrew and James and John to leave the boat and follow him, they're going off of faith a little bit. What could Jesus have said to motivate them to walk away from basically a future that is secure? What would Jesus have had to say to get them to walk away from the financial stability, maybe the reputation that they've spent years building? What did Jesus do? Let me ask this question. What would somebody have to say to you to get you to leave your job? Okay, I know 70%, so some of you are like, not much, right? Like, you're ready to walk away from your job today. But maybe I'll ask the question this way. What would it take for somebody to say, hey, your house? Why don't we risk that for a minute and try something different? All right, I don't know if you're going to be able to stay in your house or not. Just jump into this new venture with me. What would it take for somebody to say to you, hey, you know how your kids always have a meal on the table? I want you to risk that to come and do something new. What would it take for you to walk away from so much? Well, what did Jesus say to them? Jesus called out to them, come follow me and I will show you how to fish for people. And then the second set, we actually don't have a direct quote. We don't know exactly what he said. So let me jump into what I believe Jesus is trying to communicate in this moment. Why I believe that it was not just beneficial for them to walk away, but why it was exciting for them to walk away from the boat, from the nets, to follow Jesus. For those of us who have been around church for a while, you might have heard that whole expression, become a fisher of men, a million times in your life, okay? Like, for those who have, completely and totally ingrained in church culture, that is something that just, seems to show up all the time. And so one of the easiest things for me to do is as I study this passage, I see that and I start to think, oh, you know what? Maybe Jesus is saying this because that's the perfect metaphor. Like fishing, there's no better metaphor in the entire world than becoming a fisherman and fishing for people. That's why he said it. And I do believe it's a great metaphor, but let me ask this question. Just, get us to think about this from a different angle. Did Jesus say, become a fisher of men because that's the perfect way to say his mission? Or did he say, I want to invite you to become a fisher of men because he was talking to some fishermen? Well, I think it's the latter. And let me put it this way. Maybe if Jesus had walked up on a farmer, he would have said, hey, stop what you're doing, follow me, and I'm going to show you how to harvest a crop of people. Maybe if Jesus had seen an engineer, he would have said, stop what you're doing, and I'm going to show you how to design a process and a product that will change people's eternal trajectory. Maybe if Jesus had walked up on a salesman, he would have said, stop what you're doing, and I'm going to show you how you can sell people on a hope that will never leave them unsatisfied. Now, my point is, I believe that Jesus' message to the fishermen in that moment was, you are really good at fishing for fish. I'm going to show you how you can fish for people. The root of this is, I love people, and I want to gather them to myself. Your friends, your coworkers, your family members, I want them as part of this movement. That's one of the reasons why at our church, we have a twofold mission. And for those of you who know, you can say it with me, but for those who don't, just move your mouth and pretend like you do. So our mission at Crosspoint is to lead people to find and follow Jesus. Now, both of the two sides of our mission are deeply rooted in things that we hold to very strongly. In fact, the finding Jesus side of our mission, it actually goes back to our core value of evangelism. And our core value of evangelism, it goes like this. It says, we're convinced that Jesus is the hope of the world. And we will do anything short of sin to make it hard for people globally, yes, we made up that word, it's global and it's local combined, to go to hell. What's rooted in this statement is that we believe that people have an eternal destination in mind, and we want to make it super hard for anybody to experience life apart from God. That is one part of our mission. And the reason I put my arm out there is because we like to use this metaphor. If you were to get on an airplane today and you looked at both sides, which wing are you hoping to see? Yeah, you hope to see both wings, right? Like, if you don't have both wings, that plane doesn't get off the ground. And so for us, we want to lead people to find Jesus, and we want to lead people to follow Jesus. And so there's a second half of our mission that we need to talk about. And that is for us, it's rooted in our core value of spiritual growth. And the core value goes like this. It says, we choose daily to go God's way over the world's way. God desires that we take next steps to stay close and stay clean. So we at Crosspoint, we believe that God has put us here on this planet with a mission. And the mission is to lead people to find Jesus. That's evangelism. That's making it really hard for people to go to hell, for people to be apart from God. And we also believe that our mission is to lead people to follow Jesus. That's our core value of spiritual growth. That once somebody finds Jesus, giving them environments and people in their life to help develop them into the person that God has designed them and desires for them to be. And so as Jesus came upon Simon and Andrew that day, he says, I want you to become a fisher of men. The root of this, I believe, is in our core value of evangelism. God desires that it's not just for those in this room, but it's for people who are not here yet. This is one of the reasons why we have decided to pour so much of our time and our resources into procuring a new facility on Kellogg. It's not because we want a bigger brand. It's not because we believe that Crosspoint is just so cool and we need to be bigger. The reason why we would invest so much in another building is because we're committed to our core value of evangelism, our core value of helping people find Jesus. We want to make it hard for people to go to hell. But when Jesus walked up upon James and John, they were not fishing. I mean, if I'm reading this right. We don't actually have the exact words that Jesus used when he talked to them. All we have to go off of is that they're in their boats and they're mending their nets. They're repairing their nets. They're fixing them. Okay, so if Jesus walked up on Simon and Andrew, and they were fishing, and God said, I want you to become a fisher of men. What do we think Jesus said to James and John when they were mending their nets? Now, some of this we just have to kind of guess on because it's not, it's not explicitly here. We don't know an exact, quote from Jesus in this moment. But I do believe that God said something, Jesus said something to these men that was just as significant as the invitation to become fishers of men. And it's somewhat implicit here, but just bear with me. For Bible nerds like myself, sometimes we go back to the original language, and one of the things that happens in the original language is you can sometimes see some things that maybe the English doesn't always communicate as clearly. And one of the things that was really significant to me as I was going through Mark chapter 1 was the word here in verse 19 for repairing their nets, this word repairing that they have, in Greek, that word actually shows up several other times in the New Testament. It's not like unique to this instance. But here's what's crazy. Is that in context of nets, it talks about fixing the nets and repairing them. But when it comes to people, this word shows up quite a bit as well. And I just want to give you an example. This is an example of a verse that uses the same exact Greek word as we find here in Mark 1:19, but this time it has nothing to do with nets, it has everything to do with people and the church. And so this is Hebrews 13:21. It says, "Equip you with everything good, that you may do his will, working in us that which is pleasing in his sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen." Okay, do you see this whole phrase at the top? Equip you with everything good. The same word used to give us equip you with everything good is the same exact word used in Mark 1:19 for repairing the nets. And so I am not sure completely what Jesus said to James and John in that moment, but if I had to guess, that one of the reasons why Mark made it so specific that they were repairing the nets in that moment was because as they were fixing the nets, Jesus was going to forecast a better tomorrow for them. They've spent their entire lives either fishing or repairing their nets so they can go out the next day and fish and repair their nets. And I believe that what Jesus had said to James and John that moment was, "Come follow me, and I will show you how to repair the brokenness inside of people. If you follow me, I will show you how to mend the nets of brokenness that we see throughout our cities and our towns and our communities. Come follow me, and I will show you how to equip people with everything good, that they may do his will, working in us that which is pleasing in his sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen." I believe that the reason why Simon, Andrew, James, and John were willing to walk away from the certainty of a comfortable life, the reason why they were willing to forego passing on a business to their children, the reason why they were willing to walk away from knowing exactly where that next meal would come from, is because Jesus offered them a better tomorrow. And not necessarily in the outcome, but in the process. The process of leading people to find and follow Jesus. And what would happen is they might not have known this at that moment, but they would find out soon enough. Is that every one of these men, with the exception of John, was going to be martyred for what they did. They would be killed for following Jesus, really, on this day. And don't feel like John got off scot-free. John was actually boiled to death and died alone on an island. It's not necessarily a better outcome. But what would motivate them to say, it doesn't matter if I have the esteem and the respect of my colleagues. It doesn't matter if I have a house that is paid for and food on my table. I want my life to mean something. And I believe the same thing that was true in our literature and in our stories and in our movies, we don't question the sacrifice because the reward fits. The same thing was true for them. Jesus forecasted a better tomorrow that said, we love our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, our family. We love them too much. Therefore, I will give everything I have to save them. And 2,000 years later, we don't question their sacrifice because the reward is fitting. And here's what's cool as well. Jesus, he didn't do this and not follow through the same way. Jesus walked away from the splendor and the majesty of heaven, where he was worshipped 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. He walked away from that, and he came down to earth to live among us. And as he lives this life, he goes through all sorts of heartbreak. He has people betray him. He has people turn their backs on him. He is constantly under attack. He is constantly being ridiculed. He is constantly being told that his reputation was dirt. But we don't question his sacrifice. Why? Because the reward fits. You are the reward. Jesus died for you. He died for me, and he died for Crosspoint Church, and he died for all of us. And so when he stands on the seashore and says, are you going to live your life fishing and mending nets every day, all day? Or are you going to join me? Are you going to join me on this adventure? Are you going to join me on this mission that's going to see lives change? It's going to see people's futures redirected. Are you going to join me? Everything we do here goes back to our mission, to lead people to find and follow Jesus. Like I mentioned, the reason why we're investing in a new building is because we value people. One of the reasons why we put friendly people down on our patio and at our doors to say, thank you for coming to Crosspoint, here's your program, don't sit here, sit here. The reason why we do that is because we want you to have a great experience, and if you don't know Jesus, we want you to feel so welcomed and so loved that when you sit down and the song starts to be sung and the message is talked about, you're not worried about being disrespected or having a frown as you walked in. You're just worried about listening and paying attention. The reason why we have ministry teams is because we want you to get out of the boat and join us in our mission of repairing the brokenness inside of people. The reason why we do re-engage and celebrate recovery, and we have our student ministry for junior high and high school and kids ministry, is because we want to repair the brokenness that is inside every single one of us. And Jesus is standing on the seashore even today in your life saying, how are you going to live out your days? Are you going to live out your days in the drudgery, being part of the 70% who hates what they do, but never sees a better tomorrow? Or are you going to join me on mission? Are you going to be part of a team, a group of people that's going to change the world? If you would, pray with me. Dear God, I pray that we would honor your sacrifice for us in a way that is fitting. That God, as you saved us, as you have redirected our future and our destination, I ask God that we would join you on mission, that Crosspoint Church would be known as a place where people find and follow Jesus. That God, that you would give us the motivation that we need to keep going. That God, that even when the sacrifice seems too much to bear, you would remind us the reward fits. That God, that you would give us a heart for our friends and our neighbors and our coworkers and our family. That we would do everything we can, that we wouldn't stop short of anything outside of disrespecting and dishonoring you, to see those people come into a relationship with you. God, I pray that we would see miracles, that we would see supernatural things happen. And I pray this all in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.